Tauscher, is there anything wrong with wanting clarity on your role on the team and asking either yourself or your agent asking on your behalf? Is there something inherently wrong with doing that?
No, I think the issue I had when this all kind of came to light was the timing of it and the public, just the publicity of it. And I heard what Jayden had to say yesterday.
A lot of people misinterpreted that. Like, I hired a new agent, and we talked about it before even the draft, really, that, he said that he was going to talk to, the front office and everybody here to, just catch up and make sure everybody on the same page. And as a new client, he told me that's the way he was going to do it, and he did it. So now I don't know how I got out, because it was supposed to be confidential, but that's how it goes sometimes. People get a different perception, and they make their own perception, which is okay. But that's how it goes sometimes. So
I think a lot of times stuff gets leaked out that you don't necessarily want. Trust me, had everything been leaked from the wide receiver room from 2007 to 2011, you would not. It would just be different how you perceived things, because there was more stuff that went on, and you know what? That happens. It should happen. We don't mind that. Just keep it in house. Mm-hmm. I think I told you, and I believe because David Bakhtiari hit it on the head, and I knew he hit it on the head at the time, I believe I asked Jesse to do a David Bakhtiari impersonation.
You did. It was better than my Bradshaw.
He refused to do it. I think he ended up, I don't exactly know how that all shook itself out, but how he laid it out on Twitter was exactly how it was laid out. And I don't have a problem with Jayden Reed wanting that. I have a problem if Jayden Reed is pouting and being a baby about it, and by all accounts, he's not. It came across, and this is where perception becomes reality. When you have those things come up and you see that, and that's why Jayden Reed was very adamant about explaining himself. Now, do I think he was upset after Matthew Golden got drafted first? Yes. And I believe I gave the old Eleanor Tauscher quote.
Yeah.
Feel your feelings. Right. No problem with all of that. But then it's how you react. It's, sports is what it is. It's about how you react to the negativity and the, getting knocked down. Nobody will remember that Jayden Reed had Drew Rosenhaus talk to Russ Ball and Brian Gutekunst. If he goes out and has a 85-catch, 1,200-yard season, they're going to say, man, we're happy to have Jayden Reed. He's going to be a great pairing with Matthew Golden in the future. Mm-hmm. That's what the goal should always be. And the perception of what happened and how it was, and, again, understanding the landscape of how things work in the NFL Twitterverse and media, I think Jayden Reed probably feels a little bit snake-bitten and wants to just move it along. And that is exactly what he should be doing.
So he clearly knew what was coming. And frankly, again, he could have been – we weren't in the locker room yesterday. It wasn't like we all converged on his locker while he was changing and he had nowhere to go. He agreed to come and talk because he wanted to get this cleared up, and he had his things that he wanted to talk about. Now, I do think this. I do think some of the things he said, including, I don't know how it got out there, were he's trying to control and trying to not necessarily put the genie back in the bottle, but certainly damage control a little bit. And look, his agent's job, correct me if I'm wrong, is to take shrapnel for his clients sometimes too, right? Be the bad guy. And so if there is a perception that Jayden Reed was concerned about his role because of the draft, it is Drew Rosenhaus's job to be the bad guy and take that and say, well, it's me and whatever. Now, I do want to be clear on this. I don't think there's anyone who doesn't believe that Drew Rosenhaus was the source of this story to Adam Schefter. And as David Bakhtiari pointed out, him putting it out there to Schefter was meant as, in some ways, Advertising. Hey, look how I go to bat for my guy. I went to the team. He hired me, and I went right to the team and said, I want reassurance that he's going to still be the number one receiver. And I got it. I don't think he knew the way it was going to be perceived by other people. I think he miscalculated that. Drew Rosenhaus did. And then that left his client to have to deal with it a little bit yesterday. Here is how Jayden Reed dealt with it.
A lot of people misinterpreted that. Like, I hired a new agent, and we talked about it before, even the draft, really, that, he said that he was going to talk to, the front office and everybody here to, just catch up and make sure everybody on the same page. And as a new client, he told me that's the way he was going to do it, and he did it. So now I don't know how I got out because it was supposed to be confidential, but that's how it goes sometimes, people get a different perception, and, they make their own perception, which is okay. But that's how it goes sometimes. So.
No, you know how it got out. That's the only nitpicking I'll do there. Tausch, you said you had heard that already. I do think that it's totally reasonable to want to know how exactly do you view my role here, because he is in a pivotal season too.
Yeah, here's the deal. I think we always tell people, when there's conflict and when there's stuff bubbling underneath, what do you always say to your wife, or do you say to your friends? It's like, don't just hide it under the rug.
Let's talk about it.
Communicate.
Yeah.
Have some communication and get an idea of where that person is coming from. Doesn't mean you have to agree or say, oh, yeah, you're 100% right, but you just feel better about it, and it clears the air, and you can go about your business. And it's not always fun to do, but you have that conversation, and you go about it. I think Jayden Reed handled this well.
Totally agree.
I think the fact that it leaked and it made him kind of look, a little insecure about where he's at, that happens too. And it's about how you respond to it. And I thought how he handled it, you could tell he was defensive, and he's a little irritated about it. But it's now a nothing burger. And when you don't address those things, and it sits there, and then that perception continues to build, and you have people saying, well, this is what happened. Now you have straight from the horse's mouth. And yeah, we had this conversation. Anytime someone is drafted, you want to get – there's no assurances. I don't know who used that word, assurances. There aren't no assurances. It's you just want some clarity.
Rosenhaus did.
The clarity is you better go play well, and if you do, you're going to be fine. If you don't, hey, welcome to the big leagues. This is how it plays. And I think Jayden Reed can say all that he wants to say and do all this stuff. It's going to come back to just go out and play good football. You do that, everything else is going to play out exactly the way you want. If you don't, you let this affect you mentally. And a lot of times it's just let's get this out of my head and let's move on. Because I don't care what they say. They drafted a guy number 23 to be number 1. Doesn't mean that's how it's going to shake out. That story is still Natasha Bedingfielded, as far as I'm concerned.
The rest is still unwritten. I am not going to hold you to this. This is not a binding prediction on Thursday, May 29th, the year of our Lord 2025. Does Jayden Reed get a second contract from the Green Bay Packers? Yes or no?
Yes.
See, I think so too. Ultimately, I think so too.
I think he's a good compliment to Golden. I think he has been the most, and again, he did not have the springboard year, but he didn't stink last year.
Totally agree.
It just, the deal is we anticipated him, hey, here's our next Jordy, here's our next Randall Cobb, here's our next Devontae, and again, we forget people were calling for Devontae to be cut in his second year. This stuff takes some time. Not everybody comes into the league and does a Justin Jefferson, or there is some growth that goes. Jayden Reed, I do believe, will be it again. Then the money will come into play, and if he's a 1 or a 2, and how that is viewed. But I think they like Jayden Reed. I think they know his skill set, and I think they like his approach. And I would bet that Jayden Reed, of all the wideouts, I would say he'd be the most. If I had to put a wager on it, that's who I would pick down at the Hard Rock Casino Rockford of who gets their extension in that room first.
Before I tell you about Associated Bank again, Chris in the ESPN Milwaukee YouTube comments, and I know you don't think I've been doing this, but I actually do have a file on my computer because I think the 𝙒𝙀𝙀 Hall of Fame should open on our 10th anniversary as a show, and we're coming up on our 9th anniversary, which also gives me a year to work on all these things and find a brick-and-mortar location. I think Chris hit it. Be careful with that sheet. Chris says that sheet needs to go in the 𝙒𝙀𝙀 Hall of Fame. And he's right.
Really?
I think that's
one of the lost relics of
we
the show.
need to have those right, exactly. Those relics.
I had not thought of that.
What else would go in there?
Interesting. Well, this binder is probably 8 years old.
Okay. We want it to be stuff that people are interested in.
One of the big hats
Well, the
could go in
binder's
there.
interesting. It makes a lot of trips. Like, this tells the story of 𝙒𝙀𝙀 in a lot of respects.
Did we ever find that cup that was stolen from
the
you?
tumbler.
No.
The tumbler should
What
go
about
in
the
there.
chewed-on
Yeah.
pencils? And is it too late to get the Hansel and Gretel poster?
That should be in there. Yep.
That's a tough day.
We'll have to check the Tundra Trio. As Joshy points out on the private talking text line, the mug, right? Our mug that we gave away for a while.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Tausch's bag of hats that we weren't able to give away.
We need a big.
Yep, I had a bag.
Put
Can we
those
get the
hats.
TV back?
Put those in the gift shop at the Hall of Fame.
The real question is, who do we get on the mug from this year that will be cut very closely after? Because everybody that comes on and is mugged up is gone, other than Rogers. It took 5 or 6 years, and
true.
everybody I know the course runs. But City, boom. TJ, boom. Mike, boom.
Yep, you're right. You're right. The mug kiss of death.
I feel like Randall Cobb, maybe it wasn't long, and he was.
I don't think he's on a mug. I'll have to double check.
He's not a mug, but he could have been.
Ian in East Troy says this is starting to turn into the 𝙒𝙀𝙀 lost and found closet.
Well, some might say it's an archaic relic that people will be interested. Some would say it's the junk drawer. Either way,
The wire hangers.
those have already been sold. I've got some new ones though that I need kid-size hangers that we don't use anymore. What we do use is Associated Bank.
Why do you have so many hangers?
Well, it's our very successful Poshmark business, of course. Gotta hang that stuff
I know, but
up.
where are you getting the extra? If you sell all of them, you should have a surplus.
Well, you don't.
Did you go
include
from?
You don't ship the
hanging them to
hanger
putting them in
to them.
drawers?
No, if you sell a shirt, you take it off the hanger, you fold it up, you put it in an envelope, and then you ship it off to the buyer. You keep the hanger. Now you got an empty hanger.
Put the hanger in one of your kids' closets or whatnot. They're going to add more clothes. Then you don't have to go buy a new hanger.
Right, but the girls have all outgrown the small hangers, so that's what we have now are the kid-size hangers. Like Eleanor doesn't need a tiny little hanger anymore. She wears
I'm sorry.
teenager
Your
clothes.
kids have just rocketed up and went immediately from kids hangers to monster hangers in
Not
a week.
immediately.
Like, come on, dude.
I've been derelict in my hanger selling duties. I haven't gotten them listed. They've been out of circulation for a while. All right.